Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joining me today is Tim Diacono. We've got yet another exciting show for you today. The main stories are as follows. The first story is all about how the finance minister admits, how the prices of certain goods have increased due to Brexit and the pandemic. The second story is all about how Jorgen Fennick allegedly asked a PN official to eliminate Jason Azzopardi from the political party. The third story is all about a really interesting police initiative and a push for better mental health for Malta's police officers. The fourth story is all about how a major Bummarat weed bust was likely due to a tip-off from a competitor. And the last story is all about how Malta is running out of cloistered nuns and imported them from abroad. Tim, the first story, it's all about cost of living and how it's on the rise in Malta.
Yeah, so exactly, like you said, there's quite been a growing debate in Malta about the fact that prices of certain goods have increased. And the finance minister yesterday was quite frank about it, right? He said that yes, certain goods have become more expensive in the past few months due to two main global developments, namely Brexit and the pandemic. So the first issue, Brexit, is obviously Malta imports lots of goods from the UK. Brexit means the UK has left the single market, therefore new taxes, excise duties will, the way the market works is that the consumer will always bear the brunt. And the pandemic has caused huge disruptions in global supply chains. In fact, let's not forget that Malta was actually staring in the face of a major food shortage or risked it at one point. And now so basically the supply of certain goods went down, demand went down, now demand post-lockdowns increased and the supply needs to catch up. So until then, prices of certain goods will remain more expensive. It's meant to be a bit temporary. Brexit is a bit more permanent. Now, what this shows is that Malta is obviously part of the world, and things that we see happening overseas, even though they may seem irrelevant to us and that we're safe in our little bubble over here, they do have an impact as well. I think the PN strategy over here so far has been very naive. They're trying to make it seem as though this is the government's fault, the government's not doing anything about it, they're not proposing anything, they're just trying to point the fingers goods have become more expensive and you're not doing anything about it. Like, okay, what do you want to do about it? Like there's no kind of solution or proposal, and maybe these things might have worked in the past. They don't work today. I think people are more intelligent than that. Like it's other than the partisan followers, people aren't going to just get switch allegiance or try and think it's just the government's fault without any kind of solutions being offered. The government isn't offering a solution. Neither is the PN. No one really wants to touch with the market over here.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, right? I think people today are sort of crying out for some sort of vision, from the political parties, at least, how they're going to address real issues. As you said, cost of living is on the up because of, the global implications, and it's affecting people in a very real way. If you've been affected, if you've seen your cost of living increase over the last few months and weeks, please reach out to us on hello@lovinmalta.com or let us know some stories about that you're dealing with in the comments below. On to our next story. Jorgen Fennick, the Daphne Caruana Galizia murder suspect, allegedly asked a PN official to eliminate Jason Azzopardi from the political party back in 2019. Now, this information was revealed in a counter-protest by Jason Azzopardi to a judicial protest by Jorgen Fennick's lawyers concerning recent reports on Judge Giovanni Grisci before a bail hearing. Now, in his reply, Azzopardi sort of said, this is yet another part of a coordinated and systematic attack against him from Jorgen Fennick and his lawyers, and he used evidence already obtained through Jorgen Fennick's phone to evidence as such. Now, in the counter-protest, Jason Azzopardi details a series of messages between Jorgen Fennick and the PN official at the time of the MEP elections in 2019. Now, in that conversation, they're talking about trying not to get an MEP elected, believed to be David Casa, and Jorgen Fennick also says, next up you should remove Jason Azzopardi from the party altogether. Now remember, this sort of time period is actually a really murky but a really crucial period in Adrian Delia's tenure. Lovin Malta has already reported extensively on the wealth of conversations between Jorgen Fennick and Pier Portelli, who was the head of media and effectively Adrian Delia's right-hand man at the time. And sort of details quite a lot of murky stuff, including how they were planning to leak stories on internal party rivals and so on. Also, over that period, remember, Adrian Deli and Pier Portelli are actually currently subject to a magisterial inquiry following claims that they were actually accepting money from Jorgen Fennick during that period. Remember, that's actually already been repeated in court by none other than Keith Schembri, for those of you who remember. Well, Tim, yet another development in the story, yet another twist and turn. And what do you think of it all?
Well, it reminds me, to be honest, of what Joseph Muscat said recently, is that everyone wanted to be Jorgen Fennick's friend from both sides of the party. This guy was, obviously, as you know, not only very wealthy, but also very generous in the way he used to, with his money, and the way he used to help and rub up to political parties. This issue of Adrian Deli and Pier Portelli just seems like a game of chicken, to be honest, because it's been going on for over a year now. Let's not forget that Adrian Delia's the leadership election that saw Adrian Delia removed as PN leader was triggered by reports of chats between him and Jorgen Fennick, and it just seems every few months you keep hearing a new detail or more hearsay or someone else. I think a lot of people are honestly tired of it. They want to really know what happened. What we do know for sure is that the PN were pushing a certain line during that election, the European Parliament election, which was clearly to promote Frank Seiler at the expense of David Casa. But whether there were financial interests involving Jorgen Fennick involved is still up in the air. If Jason Sapardi has the goods, let's hope he starts presenting them now there's a court case. Moving on, the Maltese police force has rolled out a new mental health strategy for its officers. And this is part of the Commissioner Angelo Gaffar's vision for the transformation of the police force, and it's quite an interesting one. So it's pointing out that police officers face traumatic experiences in their line of duty, including seeing dead bodies, deaths, broken-hearted people. Several instances, not to mention the long hours and the overtime and the time away from their families and the complete uncertainty of their jobs. And what this strategy is saying is that officers who experience traumatic incidents such as suicide attempts or murders or they express certain sentiments, they will then be referred to internally to the victim support unit, and this mechanism will kick in to see if they require psychological help. Which, I'm sure a lot of people are going to say this is like some wokeness gone mad or whatever, but it's at the end of the day, I think it's quite police officers are humans too, and I think we do need a mentally it'll help everyone have a mentally strong force.
Yes, that's I think essentially the point. It's a really positive initiative. And it's good to see something like the police force taking mental health seriously with its recruits. As you said, police officers experience quite a lot of traumatic incidents in the day-to-day work. They see some really horrific stuff, particularly officers who might not be the most trained for it, right? There are certain officers, who are, district officers who sort of help the community and would never imagine, in their wildest dreams that they would stumble upon a murder scene or something very horrific like that. And it's really important that they get the mental health support they deserve, both during and after their service. On to our next story. Last week's major drug bust of 136 kilograms of weed from a Bulmarat garage likely came from a tip-off from a competitor. This came from Andrew Bonello, who's the president of Relief, which leads the charge for Malta's Cannabis Reform. He was speaking to us a few days ago and sort of detailed, how essentially all this arrest is going to do is let a competitor make more money and actually get more territory. Remember, this was a €2.5 million bust, quite a major bust. and the police themselves admitted, essentially that they got it after information from an outside source. Now, essentially what Bonello is arguing is that this latest arrest will solve nothing. Actually, it's going to create a massive vacuum, a massive hole, where violence is going to erupt as more people sort of seize to gain control of the black market. Now, Bonello very interestingly said, users are simply not happy about buying from the black market. It's an industry they don't want to support and would much rather buy it in a highly regulated manner. Now, Bonello, as I mentioned earlier, is leading sort of the charge for Malta's cannabis reforms, and he touched on the recent proposals on the issue earlier this year. While there seemed to be a lot of goodwill at first, it seems to be slowly being eroded and chipped away, with Bonello even saying that he is a bit skeptical about new reforms ministers' own Bonnici ability to see this project through. He's actually quite worried that they're going to be caving into NGOs and really solving nothing when we made such a positive push.
Yeah, the final bill is set to be presented sometime in October, but like you said, there's been a lot of pressure from groups like Caritas and groups like Awazi who only see a very small side of the issue, which is the addicts, right? And the people who will then tell them not to, that weed is something bad, that it's going to cause addictions of other drugs. Most cannabis users are invisible because they're active members of society and don't ever need Caritas or any of these groups. I mean, I hope the government looks at the situation from the grand scheme of things rather than trying to make some kind of compromise depending on who submitted consultations. I hope it doesn't bow down to pressure like this, because at the end of the day what will happen is the law will be updated again, and then a few years time we'll realize that it still isn't enough and we'll have to just go back to the drawing board. So just complete waste of time and just get on with it already. And finally, a nun has sparked a bit of a discussion in the country by admitting that the nunnery, this particular monastery in Valletta, has dwindled the numbers so much that it had to resort to bringing in 3 nuns all the way from the Philippines, which is of course a Catholic country. Now, she said that Mother Michaela said that the monastery used to host around 60 nuns, and now it's down to 4, all elderly nuns. And they must either bring over these nuns from the Philippines, or else the convent won't survive. Yeah, I mean, not really surprising, right? I mean, not surprising that not many Maltese people want to join the convent. It must be, honestly, I think it's a really awful life to be on. Like it's the irony is that you're living in a really beautiful and tranquil environment, but you do nothing, right? You all day you just sit there and pray. So I'm not surprised in the slightest that not many people want to get into that line of work. I don't know if we're going to end up seeing like lots of Filipino nuns keeping the tradition alive. It seems a bit like flogging a dead horse, right, in a way.
Yeah, no, that's it, right? And in this particular situation, it's cloistered nuns, right? So they actually never leave the monastery, They're always in there, so it's actually really quite a backwards idea. And really, to be honest, I think maybe what the debate should spark is maybe the positions of nuns within the Catholic Church themselves, right? They're actually still not able to give mass, we live in 2021. Why is the Catholic institution the one where there's such a big discrepancy in the power between men and women, right? So maybe there's time to actually have a stronger debate on that, and maybe we'd actually see more nuns, joining the Catholic Church. A little follow-up to that story, however, and very typical, unfortunately Maltese style, there was a little bit of a backlash that Filipino women were coming to occupy the space of the cloister, and there was a lot of criticism online. MP Silvio Panis, stepped in, and said, how ridiculous this is, these Filipino women are like sort of coming to keep this cloistered tradition alive. Whatever your personal opinion is, these women are actually, coming to sort of help what they feel is good, and there's no need to be critical on the nationality, maybe criticize the structure, and that would be more than enough. That's it from us today. Before we end, I'm going to play a little trailer from A Little Smile. It's our documentary about Bjorn Formosa from ALS Malta. It's airing tonight at 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in.
I live by the sense of urgency, life. surprises you. You can do incredible things even without moving any muscle of your body. Għajjejt nibbat in-nies lura d-dar ngħidilhom li ma nistax ngħinhom. Ma li kont naqra li l-isma kien hemm nebda tip ta' trattament magħruf, allura kienet sentenza tal-mewt pratikament.
Jekk tkun tħobb persuna jiena nemmen li tagħmel kollox għalih.
We started realizing that most of the people with ALS, they don't have the necessary support they need at home. Tu għalhekk huwa ta' interess nazzjonali dal-proġett jiġi miftuħ kemm jista' jkun malajr.